Ladies and gentlemen, now it's my pleasure to welcome you to the anticipated plenary discussion and Q&A session. Dr. Helen Ting, Associate Professor, the Institute of Malaysian and International Studies, IKMAS, Universiti Kebangsaan, Malaysia, is the chairperson. The first panelist is Dr. Soong, Mother Tongue Education Activist. Together with him is Madam Rita Lasingba, KLF Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Michael Marinjok, Sarawak Society for the Protection of Indigenous Rights. Last but not the least, Mr. Joemin Maratin, MTB-MLE Director of SIL Malaysia. Dr. Helen Ting, are you here? Yes, Dr. Helen, welcome. The floor is yours now.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I was trying to put my background to the conference, but I'm not able to do it. It's too sophisticated for me, but it's okay. Welcome to the last session, but not is the most important session, because the objective of us organizing this conference is not just to talk about it and go home and everybody happy about it, but we want to see how we can tap into the potential generated by this conference to do something more for mother tongue based multilingual education. As you could see from this morning's session, there is a lot of need on the ground, and a lot of initiatives have been carried out to help the communities are helping themselves to try to help the children and to help their community to preserve their language and culture. So the aim of the last session today is actually to think of to see whether we can think of ways which can help this initiative on the ground to give them more resources and push to be able to improve. Yeah. So today we have, as the MC have explained, we have 4 panelists. But actually, the objective of having the panelists is to first let them start off with some reflection. But the objective is actually to encourage active participation and discussion from among all the participants, because whatever action or project we want to undertake after this conference, actually it is really up to all of us to be able to participate. It's no use to tell someone else you need to do this. We need to say we want to do this or that. But the purpose of the 4 persons is the thing is they are all very intimately involved in various capacities with in the mother tongue based education or their promotion. So since the MC had announced that Dr. Kwa will go first, perhaps I will let Dr. Kwa speak first. Let me introduce him. Dr. Kwa is well-known in Malaysian society. He's a well-known activist in promoting mother tongue education. And he is also actively involved with human rights NGO Suara. I think he is one of the founding founder of Suara. And he only want me to introduce him as former principal of the Tong Jiao Zong New Era College from 2000 and 2008. So may I now give the floor to Dr. Kwa?
Can you see me?
Yes, I
Okay.
can see you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Kudos to the organizers of the conference. I've had many takeaways the last 2 days, and especially what the contributors from Philippines, Thailand, and Cambodia have given us a lot of incentive and motivation, encouragement for what we can do in this country. But before I start, before we go into the way forward, I think there has to be a more realistic view of what the situation is like in this country. because some people coming to look at Malaysian case may not have a very clear idea of the whole picture. So I'm going to put my share screen. Oh, sorry. Can you see my slides now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, got some nice pretty flowers for everybody for letting 100 flowers bloom. So before we look at the picture of mother tongue in this country, we have to also accept that this headline and this picture actually appeared in yesterday's newspaper. You'll be surprised, you know. But actually, this has been going on ever since independence in 1957. So, and the mother tongue vernacular schools have always been pinned as the one to blame for racial polarization in this country. So as we will see, the situation isn't as is portrayed by the official narrative. Of course, in relation to the other indigenous languages is slightly different. But the most tragic case I can think of that can justify why the indigenous people should have their own mother tongue language, especially in the early days, was seen in the tragic case of 7 orang asli pupils in Post Tohoi in Guamusang, Kelantan, when about 7 pupils ran into the jungle because they were terrified of going back to the school. I think it was a boarding school, and 4 died. So this is the most tragic case I can think of. And then there are other cases that was mentioned by Colin this morning about, for example, when the Bakun Dam came in. It hadn't come in, but the people living in the Bakun area were displaced in 1998, even though there was a financial crisis in the country. And for example, amongst the 15 different ethnic communities that were moved from Bakun, you have the Ukit, for example, and the Kalabit. And the Ukit are the only ethnic community of their kind in the world. And now they are languishing in the Sungai Asap resettlement scheme further downstream from the Rajang. And the government should really go to study and see how they are. We did a study, a fact-finding mission about 6 months after they were displaced, and already the scheme was looking like a ghetto. So as far as the Chinese and Tamil schools in this country are concerned, I mean, this morning's papers, we saw how we were supposed to be happy with the government for what we have in terms of Chinese and Tamil schools. But actually, what we have actually regressed since independence. You look at the year 1957, when the Chinese population was 2,300,000. We had 1,342 primary schools. We had 86 secondary schools, and we even had one tertiary institution called Nanyang University, where the famous writer Han Suyin taught for a while. And today, with the population about triple to nearly 7 million, we have fewer primary schools than we had at independence. We have fewer secondary schools than we had at independence, and these secondary schools, I might add, are independent secondary schools, which means that they're not supported by the government. And we're supposed to have 3 tertiary institutions, but they are nowhere like the stature of Nanyang University between 1957 to 65. And many people may not know that at independence, between 1957 to 1961, the government actually ran a school leaving certificate for the Chinese secondary schools. You know, a thought that people would never realize today. And the other point is that today the enrollment of non-Chinese pupils in Chinese primary schools has grown to 100,000. And that is like 1/6 of the total number of pupils in these schools. The number of Tamil schools at independence and today are also starkly different. In 1957, when there were only 700,000 Indians in this country, there were 888 Tamil primary schools. And today, there are more than 2 million Indian population, and the number of primary schools has dropped to 527. And usually the government says, oh, we don't have enough funding. for the multilingual education, but I think that's a very poor excuse, because if we look at the GDP per capita at 1957 for Malaya, it was only US $800. Today in 2021, our GDP per capita is over 10,000, I think about 10,500. And we're supposed to be on the verge of becoming a high income society. And from between 1957 and 1965, we had elected local governments throughout the country. And they were disbanded. We no longer had elected local governments from 1965. And we only had appointed local governments. And at the time, when the Pakatan Harapan government came in 2018, the Minister for Local Government said that we don't have enough money. So again, I would point to the fact that at independence, we had only $800 US. Today, we have 10,000, more than 10,000 US dollars. Don't tell me we don't have enough money. And we can see how through the years, the vernacular schools in this country have been politicized rather than rationally organized. In the old days, even you look at the indigenous languages, at various points in our history, they have had different, they have seen better days. For example, Iban was the medium of instruction in the Sarawak curriculum during the 19th century, during the British colonial times. And it was even offered as a subject in the public examinations, and was taught in the Teachers Training College. It was used, the language used in courts and the organs of mass media. And when the government feels there's a need, for example, during the emergency, to influence the Orang Asli against the communist insurgents, we even had a broadcast called Siaran Orang Asli in their own language, in the semi-language, to try and win them over away from the communist insurgents. And so we can see how when it suits the government, the mother tongue languages of these indigenous peoples can be encouraged and even promoted. And we know that, for example, in the old days, when missionaries came to this country, in Sarawak, Sabah, even in Peninsular Malaysia, they translated the Bible into different indigenous languages. Consequently, through the years, the shortage of teachers, not only for the indigenous languages, but even for Chinese and Tamil schools in this country, have been starkly short, and funds especially. The most recent case, I think, was when the budget 2022 was announced. 120 million ringgit was allocated to the 1,800 Chinese and Tamil schools, out of a total allocation of 67 billion in the education sector for budget 2022. So even this has even aroused the anger of one of them, a member of parliament from Johor Bahru, Hassan Karim, was standing up in parliament to say, what kind of justice is this? Come on, sort of saying, come on, we Bumi Putras, can we do better than that? And so pupils' own language was raised this morning, but they've never been encouraged. I went to school in the early post-independence era, and I know for a fact that pupils' own language has never been, even in the old days, encouraged and seriously implemented. Since Colin this morning mentioned the conference we had in 1997, the mother tongue education of Malaysian ethnic minorities. And but since then, I know that, for example, during that time, the Kadazan Dusun community and the Bedayu and the Semai, since then, in recent years especially, have developed their respective languages and even implemented, which we saw just recently in the last panel, early childhood education programs. So now we look at what can we do about the way forward? One problem in this country that has held back mother tongue education in this country is there's no commitment to multiculturalism. Mother tongue education is not seen as a right, as it is seen as a right in the Federal Constitution, Article 152. And if you look at the Education Ordinance of 1957, which is the closest education ordinance to independence, it states very clearly that although the 1961 Education Act only mentions that the education policy of the Federation is to establish a national system of education, making Malay language the national language of the country, it left out the tail that is in Article 152, that is in the 1957 Education Ordinance, and that tail is whilst preserving and sustaining the growth of the language and culture of the peoples other than Malays living in the country. And that is why since then, even in the 1996 Education Act, mother tongue education is not seen as a right, but is mainly seen as a kind of a privilege that can be accorded by the minister. So the constitutionality of vernacular schools through the years, and I'll just show you the news cutting from yesterday. A lawyer from the ruling party, I call it the ruling party because UMNO has been the ruling party, even though we've had ruling coalitions. And that lawyer has usually defended the government in UMNO in many of these constitutional cases. But through the years, even I've come across a case where even a constitutional lawyer who is seen to be very rational, has even said that with the judgment, the federal court judgment of the Merdeka University, if you remember, was the case where the Dong Jiaozhong took the government to court because they refused Dong Jiaozhong the right to open Merdeka University. And in his foreword to my 2019 title, 200 Years of Chinese Education in Malaysia, the Honorable Michael Beloff QC, who was our QC in the Merdeka University case, said this. He said, the federal court nowhere said that its judgment cast any doubt on the constitutionality of vernacular schools. That is number one, very important. And the only judicial dictum that I have found, that Michael Beloff has found on this issue, said unequivocally, there is nothing unlawful allowing Chinese or Tamil schools to continue. And he quotes the public prosecutor versus Mark Coding. Mark Coding is an East Malaysian politician. And the judge, I think, was Muhammad Asmi. And then the third point is, whether viewed through the lens of authority or power, there are obvious differences between the functions of university on the one hand and the school on the other, which suggests that a read across from one entity to another would be inappropriate. And he also points to the fact that on the international plane, there's a growing sensitivity to the preservation and protection of the linguistic rights of ethnic minorities, quoting the Universal Declaration of Linguistic Policies at Barcelona in 1996. So the cost of championing multiculturalism in Malaysia, we've seen, I noticed that one of the sponsors of this conference is the Lim Lian Giok Foundation. And this Lim Lian Giok, we see him as the soul of the Malaysian Chinese in this country. The citizenship of Lim Lian Giok was revoked in 1961 and has not, since his death, been posthumously restituted. And apart from that, 4 Chinese educationists, including me, were detained without trial under Operation Lalang from 1987 to 1989. And the thing is, the Chinese Secondary Schools Unified Examination Certificate, the UEC, up to today, is still not recognized by the government, even though it was a big feature in the general election of the 14th general election. And even though the UEC is recognized in the rest of the world. The second point is that the second way forward is that we should establish mother tongue schools according to need. And this point I think is very important. I didn't bring up the question of elected local governments just by chance. But the fact is that elected local governments can be a way in which we can depoliticize and de-racialize vernacular schools and mother tongue education in this country, as it has been racialized and politicized all these years. And unless we bring back elected local government, we can, the decision to build new schools or to build new classes for mother tongue education for the indigenous peoples will be left to the Ministry of Education, which is invariably politicized. So when we have elected local governments, the local council will hold a survey to find that what in their local community, the local community wants. Whether they want Chinese schools or Tamil schools or Malay schools, or whether they want Kadazan, Dusun, or whatever. So to me, that's very important. And the third point is that the multilingual education, as we have seen in the last 2 days in this conference, for our indigenous peoples must be placed on the national education agenda. And the training of teachers in all teacher training colleges must be on a standard practice based on need and not on the whim of the Ministry of Education.
Can you conclude?
Yes, nearly there now. So I think there must be fair financial allocation for all mother tongue education systems in this country. I noticed that one of the Indigenous people's preschool program this morning was funded by some United States foundation. I think I don't see why such a funding should come from other than our own country. And I hope that the teacher training colleges will train teachers to teach in the mother tongue of all ethnic minorities. As Colin pointed out, this important point of native customary land rights is basic to the question of the existence and the preservation and the development of mother tongue languages of the indigenous peoples. The government talks about Keluarga Malaysia, and I think that Keluarga Malaysia can only be forged based on honoring the rights of all ethnic communities to their mother tongue education. As far as our discussions later on, I think that apart from calling on the government to do all these things, it is time that the Malay, Chinese, Tamil schools, civil society bodies set up a multilingual education coalition to support mother tongue education of our indigenous communities, rather than let our indigenous communities rely on foreign funding, etc. So thank you for sharing, hearing my little paper. And with these flowers in front of you, I hope that we'll let our multilingual schools blossom. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kwa. Next, I will call upon Madam Rita Lasingba to share her thoughts. Before that, let me briefly introduce her. She is the Chief Executive Officer of the Kadazan Dusun Language Foundation after serving as a curator at the Department of Sabah Museum. And Madam Lasimbang has a BSc honor in Botany from Universiti Malaya, Kuala Lumpur, and MA in Linguistics from University of Texas in US. She has served as a project coordinator and linguistic consultant in the compilation of the Kadazan Dusun Malay English Dictionary, the Timugong Murut Malay Dictionary, as well as Hatot Suan Latut Dictionary. Many languages that I don't know. And Madam Lasimbang has also been active for a long time in the promotion and preservation of indigenous languages and cultures. And she has conducted training workshops, give talks, and coordinate various publications in this field. So I think, yeah, Rita, you want to use the video, right? Or you want to?
Yes, thank you. So can proceed with the video. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank Dr. Helen for the introduction. And a good afternoon, Kopi Vosian, to all my fellow panelists and all participants of this international conference on mother tongue-based multilingual education 2021. I would like to thank the organizers of this conference for inviting me to be a part of the plenary discussions to discuss mother tongue-based multilingual education in Malaysia, the way forward. Before I share my reflection and thoughts for the future, I'd like to share what we, the Kadazan Dusun Language Foundation, KLF, have done in terms of the advocacy for MTB-MLE in Sabah, as well as for Malaysia. The idea for an MTB-MLE program for the indigenous peoples of Malaysia first came to me when, together with a colleague and a couple, Jim and Carla Smith, field workers with SIL Malaysia, attended the 2005 World Indigenous Peoples Conference on Education in Hamilton, New Zealand. WIPSI is the largest, most diverse Indigenous education forum in the world, bringing together delegates to share strategies for culturally grounded education. Modeled after WIPSI and in response to the global advocacy for Indigenous people's education, we plan for a Malaysian Indigenous Peoples Conference on Education, MIPSI, I remember, as we sat by the Waikato River. MIPSI's objective is to raise awareness on the needs and benefits of an effective mother tongue-based multilingual education program, a program that allows students from native language minorities to gain a solid fundamental education in their mother tongue. Following WIPSI, KLF and SIL organized a study tour to New Zealand to learn about Maori experience in MTB-MLE. Together with us in the group were members from the Iranun Language and Cultural Association, BKI, and the United Sabah Bajau Organization, USBO, and the Dayak Bidayu National Association, DBNA. After much preparation, on the 23rd to 30th April 2007, KLF together with SIL, BKI, and USBO organized the first Malaysian Indigenous Peoples Conference on Education. This was held at the Ostrich Villa Lodge in Kota Belud, Sabah. WIPSI 1 was a great success as it was an eye-opener for many Indigenous communities who are not aware of the heritage language revitalization activities and MTB-MLE programs, which were already in progress in other parts of the world. One of the highlights after MIPSI 1 was the introduction of heritage preschools to the wider Indigenous communities. Interested communities were able to link with our network partner SIL Malaysia to set up their own heritage preschool, Taska and Tadika Warisan programs. Mother tongue-based early education was also implemented at community learning centers under PACOS Trust. SIL Malaysia continues to provide the communities involved with technical support, consultation, and training of teachers in MTB-MLE program almost every year. MIPSI 2 was held in 2016, almost 10 years after the inaugural event in Sabah. It was held at Damai Beach Resort, Kuching, Sarawak, on the 20th to the 22nd of September. The host of the conference was the Dayak Bidayu National Association, DBNA, and co-organized by UNICEF Malaysia, KLF, SIL Malaysia, PACOS Trust, Universiti Malaysia Sarawak, Universiti Malaysia Sabah, and many other distinguished network partners. MIPSI 2 was a place to network and share various approaches to Indigenous education, mother tongue-based multilingual education, and the use of mother tongue in formal and non-formal settings. One of the key highlights of MIPSI 2 was a 3-day featured workshop on ethno-arts material development, which was fully attended by heritage preschool teachers, community learning school teachers, and other interested conference participants. During the featured workshop, a member of our network partner from the Lotud community, who is trained in ethno-arts, set up an exhibition to showcase how Indigenous ethno-arts materials can be used as teaching materials. Here is an exhibition of the Linangkit ethno-arts module. Linangkit is a colorful needle tapestry weave of the Lotut people. The motifs of the linangkit are used to teach preschool children shapes, colors, and counting through songs and dance activities. The conference organizers received a lot of enthusiastic feedback from the workshop participants, especially heritage preschool teachers and the community learning centers preschool teachers, who requested for more workshops to be held. Thus, after the conference, the program was continued with another 4 series of ethno-arts material development workshop. Our panelists, Mr. Joemin, will elaborate on this in a while. With the conclusion of MIPC2, a delegation from the MIPC2 Organizing Committee presented the MIPC2 resolution to the Minister of Education on May 10, 2017. Here, the chairman of MIPC2 Organizing Committee, Dr. Iqbahon, presenting the MIPC2 resolution to the Minister of Education, witnessed by members of the delegation and officers of MOE. However, there has been a change in the Minister of Education. The new minister hasn't made any reference to the resolution, as the MOE has to focus the efforts on COVID-19 and ensuring students as well as teachers are supported in the online learning mode. But we will have to continue to advocate for this. As what Professor Lobianco had said, we have to continue to engage with the policymakers. The International Decade of Indigenous Language, IDIL, is upon us next year. We need to work hard with our partners to ensure that the Malaysian Indigenous Peoples Conference on Education 3 materialize next year, so that we can leverage on the start of IDIL to engage, plan, strategize, and move ahead with our activities that bring us concrete results within the decade in our revitalization of our mother tongue. With that, Ketua dan terima kasih. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rita, for sharing with us about the initiative of Indigenous people, especially, I think it's mainly in East Malaysia. Are the Orang Asli involved also?
Yeah, this is Malaysian Indigenous Peoples Conference for Education. So all indigenous Malaysian, all Malaysian for the country. Okay.
Yeah, I have posted in the share box the document, the resolution from the 2016 MISI, the Indigenous Peoples Conference. Perhaps participants will be interested to know what are the demands or the requests regarding to the government, yeah, from the indigenous people from Malaysia. And now I will pass the floor to Mr. Michael Mering Job. Let me introduce him first. Michael is of a mixed parentage of Kayan and Kenya, but live in a Kenya Longhouse, sorry, by the name of Umar Kenya Longbangan in Belaga district, where there are 2 hydro dams, Bakun and Murun dams. He is also the Secretary General of Society for the Rights of Indigenous Peoples of Sarawak, and he is trying to, they do education work with indigenous community in Sarawak about their rights, training of leaders, documentation of oral history, and promotion of the practice of sustainable agriculture. I think they are starting what they call Sekolah Adat, as a way of life by the indigenous community. So without much ado, I will pass the floor to Michael.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
The internet line is not so good here. Actually, I'm on traveling. I'm in Kuching right now. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the organizer and all those involved in this conference on multilingual education. And thank you very much for inviting me to be one of the panelists, and thank you, Dr. Helen, and all the friends that I've heard you all have said about the language, about what had happened in your country, in our country. And let me just share this a few thoughts that I have on this. Can I share my screen?
Can you try?
Yeah, I try first. How do I get it?
Share screen. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. I think we see.
A bit slower. Can you all see?
Yes. Can you put it on the presentation mode? Yeah.
That one? Okay.
Yes. Good. Yeah.
Okay. So the organization that I'm in Sarawak is called the SCRIP, Society for Rights of Indigenous People of Sarawak. And basically what SCRIP is all about is, it is more for it's a community, the indigenous community-based organization that serves the indigenous community itself. When we talk about this a way forward this afternoon, you know, we have seen a lot in Malaysia for the last few years. The talk about truly Malaysia in Asia. I put it here like anyway, truly Sarawak in Malaysia. Now people talk about, you know, our rights as some people say it's a country, some people say it is nation, some people say just a wilaya or just a territory, whatever it is. But whatever it is, Malaysians are nowadays more aware of their respective identity as individual, as a tribe, or as a group of people, wherever they are in today. So what is our identity? Sarawakans normally want to be recognized based on their tribe or on their race, and also on the other, the culture, the language, the customs, and also on their religion, their belief system, whether they are Muslim, Christian, or still practice the old adat system. And who are in Sarawak? And a lot of people are not too sure of who are in Sarawak. Besides the Malays, the Chinese, the Malanaus, the Indians, and others, we have the Dayaks. So the Dayak are considered to be the original people that have settled here thousands of years ago. So in Sarawak, there are three types of Dayak. There are three groups. The Iban, there's only one group of Iban, except their slang a bit different. It depends on where they live. If they live where a lot of rapids in my area, for example, in Ulu Kapit, they tend to talk very loud. Like me, I tend to talk very loud because we live, go through the rapids, we have to pull the boats, we have to shout, you know, we don't talk soft. But there are some people like Iban and Kuching, the way they talk are quite soft because they are very quiet and all this, whatever it is. And also we have the Dayak Bidayu. Sorry if what I'm written here is not quite accurate. Is it 5 different languages? I'm not too sure, 4 or 5, something like that. No, they are Bidayu, but they speak different dialects. And the last one is, the third group is the Dayak. The Kenya, we also speak different languages. Can you hear me? I think my line start already. You hear me, Steve?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Continue. Yeah.
okay. So let me just go through this one about these three groups. So listening to all of you sharing the situation in Malaysia, how the languages, how people maintain it since we started as a nation, you know, there are so many challenges that faced by the different group of people, different tribes. So for our group, my group, what we try to help the indigenous people, especially these three group of Dayak, the Dayak Iban, Dayak Bidayu, Dayak Orang Ulu, is one of the ways we do now is the documentation of their oral history. It's very important to document this oral history because in the modern days today, it depends where you are educated. If you send to the Western universities, the emphasis might be on individualism, on rights, your personal right. But if you are trained in Malaysia, I don't know what do we understand by our right, community right or individual rights. So it all depends on where you were sent to studies. But anyway, there are many leaders today, either they are secular leaders or religious leaders, they tend to change terminologies. You know, for example, there are so many terms used by the native itself, but they've been changed. You know, a lot of people are not so quite knowledgeable about their own language, so therefore they start to use terminologies which are not belong to the mother tongue. So whatever it is, what I'm trying to say, in the documentation, we put things, at least what we know as something that's originally belong to the native, and one of it is their language. You know, the way we talk now, we are more toward the. If we learn language, we also think like those who speak the language. You know, if you learn English, you also think like English. If you learn Chinese, you tend to think like Chinese. If you learn Malay, you also tend to think like Malay. So if you learn your own language, you tend to think your own way of your origin. But the point here is, we talk about identity. For us, we emphasize on the important identity because there are certain leaders in the world today. We have crazy leaders. We also have some extremist leaders, extreme leaders, whatever you call them. And that these are the leaders that can spoil people's life, people's identity. They want to do away with it through laws. They want to do away with it through persecution. They want to do away through religion. They want to do away with whatever means. But for us, as native of Sarawak, we want to maintain our identity. One of it is our language. So many of the people are trying to bring it up by influencing the legislators, by influencing the leaders, you know, this, so that they can get through it, like the Iban now, the Bidayu, the Kayan, through radios, even through the churches, the different churches in Sarawak. So these are the things. So for us as our NGO, we try our best, though we don't have the fun to go about it, but we just move on. Whatever we can do, we just do, because of our love for our people, that when they understand their rights, it is they themselves will sound it. It is they themselves will speak about it. There's no need for us to instigate them. There's no need for us to tell them. But once they understood the right, they will speak out, because we believe that knowledge is power. So therefore, we're talking about documentation. And the next one we are looking forward to is our Sekolah Adat. You know, Sekolah Adat is, if you talk about Sekolah Adat, where we define Adat, Adat to us is everything about life. Our way of life, our basic values, our culture, our accepted code of conduct, our manners, our convention, and our customary laws. You know, these are all written. These are all written in the book. So the Adat book we have so far now, these are all written now. This is the Adat book of the indigenous people. So some are written in their own language, and also in English, and also in their original language. So they define the Adat here means about life. So when we talk about our school of life, we are teaching them about themselves, bringing it up so that it will become their identity. So we will start that for next year. So that's so far that I can share with you all this afternoon, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Micah. Yeah, we will go to the last panelist, who is Mr. Joemin Maratin. Joemin is from a ethnic group called Kimaragan, sorry. Sorry for my ignorance, but yeah, he is one of the ethnic groups, indigenous group in Sabah, and he has been working. Michael, would you mind unsharing your screen? He has been doing multilingual, mother tongue-based multilingual education since 2013, and mostly in Sabah, but he has also advised groups or do teacher training in both Sarawak and Semenanjung. So now he is currently the mother tongue-based multilingual education director for SIL Malaysia. So without much ado, I'd like to invite Mr. Joemin Maratin to take the floor.
Thank you to our moderator, Dr. Helen Ting, our distinguished fellow discussant, and those who are joining this session. Kopi Posian dan Mr. Sodoy, selamat petang and good afternoon. Okay, in this opportunity, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizer for inviting me to be a part of this session. LDSIL in Malaysia is a non-profit organization that works in partnership with local community in Malaysia to develop language solutions that expand possibilities for a better life. Our vision is
unfortunately, the bandwidth of Joemin is a bit low.
2007. Heritage Language Play School were first started in several languages in January 2007. We started with Big Book, listening story, experience stories, big pictures, teaching aids, and other materials. With our partners, we produced a curriculum and material for Indigenous people adapted to each language and culture. The first book was trialed in a preschool classroom for 5 years before being published. It is a very practical book with what is needed for beginning the first level of preschool readiness skill for maths, literacy, science and health, and arts. There are hard copies in Kuching, Sarawak that people in Malaysia can purchase, both available in English and Bahasa. We also have a second book. It is Cage 2, by the way, that has been used in draft form for more than 10 years in Tadika, adapted to each language and culture. It is a global publishing service, but if people get in touch, we can add their name to the list. So when it's published, they can get an e-copy. And again, it is also a full curriculum for beginning literacy and numeracy, along with science, health, and the arts. Along with this, that I will explain about in a minute. So almost every year we conduct MTB-MLE in-service training for teachers, and sometimes just feel free to contact me if you want to know more about it. So you can scan this barcode and then you can get all information about my email and my contact number. Now, as Madam Rita mentioned earlier, you might be curious about what has been done after the MIPC 2. The 3 days of MIPC 2 featured an ethno-art workshop focusing on material development. This workshop received excellent feedback from the teachers and participants. Our beloved specialist, Dr. Maribeth, and her team, and in collaborating with collaborations with Pakostras as a host, KLF, LDSM Malaysia, and UMS, we are successfully managed to conduct 4 more series of ethno-arts workshop in 2017 and 2018. Some of the materials that were produced during the workshops are the 7 types of materials, i.e. the big busy picture. So on the left side, there's a big picture. As its name says, it's busy. The big busy pictures are designed to give students a lot of things to talk about, to promote speaking, creative thinking, and critical thinking skills. They reflect familiar culture themes and usually have 16 to 20 activities to talk about based on different themes. They are about 1 meter wide and about 70 or 80 centimeters long, so that everybody in a classroom can see the detail in the pictures. So the other material is big book, usually A3 size, illustrated story. They are used in a shared reading activity and can be large versions of small book stories or specially written story with lots of repetition and predictable text. Small stories. Small stories have black and white drawing on each page to help the student understand the words and meaning in the story. They can be used as a group reading activity or for individual reading. Students can color the pictures, taking it home to practice and reading with their parents. So by the way, there is no pictures of small book day, but there is pictures days of 7 type of material that they developed during the ethno training. So I don't have much time to explain the other materials. I can explain that maybe later in the Q&A if they want to ask what the other 5 materials I will share. So this is the manual that you can read and learn more about ethno-arts and how to create material that is culturally relevant to your culture. So again, if you want to get the e-copy, they are available in English and Malay. So again, it's for free, and just feel free to contact me. So LDSM Malaysia also offers technical support for the teacher in the area of language technologies, such as Bloom. And the other one is reading apps. So at the screen now, it's a Bloom apps. So with Bloom, teacher can make their own book that can be accessed anyway, anytime, as long as you have the internet. So if you want to know more about it, just let me know. And again, just drop me an email, contact this number. I will be available for you. Okay, I'm afraid I do not have enough time to share everything. And it's a very short time for me to share everything. But I'm glad that I, have the opportunity to share a little bit about what we did for the past few years, and after, especially after the NIPSI 2. So yeah, I'm afraid I do not have enough time to share everything. I will give the floor back to Dr. Helen. So maybe in later discussion, I'm probably using Malay so that it's more, engage the Malay speaker. Thank you, Dr. Helen. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Joemin. Yeah. Would you mind unsharing the screen?
Sure.
Okay. So, yeah, we have heard from 4 speakers. I think they are working in their own community, expressing, the needs and what they are doing. So now is the time for all of us to participate in a conversation about the suggestions or ideas that have been raised by them, and also, you know, whatever ideas you have from listening to the 3 days of, you know, presentations and inputs and discussions. Perhaps to let your brain, give you time for your brain to work. There are 2 questions from Mentimeter. The one question is, why is there a fear about multilingual education here compared to South Africa, which has reached multilingual and multicultural society, even accept their multi-ethnic society after independence? I think Dr. Kwa had shared a bit about the political context. What we can, what we know, is that it is a political issue. It's not a pedagogical issue. Even though in this conference we try to focus on the educational aspects of the issue, but yeah, that's why the political aspect did not come out much until Dr. Kwa sort of highlighted. Yeah, any other person, if you want to comment, yeah, please feel free on the question posed by the participant. You have any comments? Why is it that our government see multilingual education as a threat or not?
Anybody wants to start, or
Yes, please.
Over to you, Dr. Kwa.
I've written a big book about this called Racism and Racial Discrimination in Malaysia, and basically it's ever since independence, ever since the independence struggle and all that, and the kind of government that we had at independence is been based on communalism, and if you look at the whole independence struggle, the people who were fighting for a different kind of concept, people's constitution, would had a very different idea of what our independent country was going to be like. So through the years, UMNO has been the ruling party, even though we had a short blip at when Pakatan Harapan took over. The UMNO DNA was still there. Mahathir was still in charge, and so through the years, UMNO has had this so-called ultimate objective of making Malay the main medium of instruction in this country. And that is the main problem, like what I said in my presentation, the constitutionality of this question is actually been twisted out of context by UMNO, including the lawyer yesterday in the newspaper challenging, wanting the vernacular schools to be closed. It's the same thing.
Okay, yeah. I think there is another question in the chat box. It says that the networks of NGOs, local communities, and individual activists for indigenous languages can be the key for the progress of multilingual education in Malaysia. Regarding Orang Asli, what organizations are acting pivotal for multilingual education? I see Janita is here. I don't know whether you want to respond to the question. Do you know of, I mean, is the, Pusat Community Pendidikan acting, try to coordinate efforts among Orang Asli regarding mother tongue-based preschool education? Janita?
Hi. Thank you for the question. So in our coalitions on, sorry, I cannot open the video because now I transmission my location already. I changed my location. So to answer to the question is that we, under the PDK coalition, we try our best to promote the learning center to every orang asli villages. In fact, there is several agency or NGOs who run their own community learning center with their capacity. So so far we working closely with the government now since 2020, and in between we also collaborate with the others NGOs who helping the orang asli communities to setting up a learning center. So for ours in Peninsula, this is very new, especially for me as well, since 2014. I think even though almost 7 years, but still I'm still learning to assist to closely with the community and try our best to help what we can lah. Am I answer the question?
Yes, yes. So besides you, you say that there are other organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Which are the other organizations who take?
What I can share here is a Global Peace NGO called Global Peace, and EPIC, if I'm not mistaken, they're also working with the Orang Asli's learning centers, and they're providing their own curriculums. Yeah, it's a mainstream curriculum, if I'm not mistaken. And what else? The others. So for the rest, there are a body calling a training center teaching English is a Soul 24/7. That one is another NGOs who working closely with the Orang Asli in Peninsula for especially for the youths. This is very, very important. So the collaborations after the collaboration working with these NGOs is that for me under PDK, for those youths who being taught in with us, right after a period of time when they are ready to be faced outside, we will support them, encourage them to further to take another levels to further study, to see that they can enhance their ability and their apa itu, the importance of education lah, so that they can expand the knowledge. That's what I can see. So from that experience, they finished study in the training center in Kuala Lumpur. They were coming back and contribute back to the community. That is why one of our teachers in PDK, she is the former students of Soul 27, and also my former student as well. So now she's going back to her community to contribute any skills that she learns from the training center. So I think this is very, very important, that we want to see the outcome to our youths, to our new generations, so they engage with their community and also preserve the mother tongues in their own community. Yeah, that's what I can say lah.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. There is a fourth question there. Any reason why mother tongue rights movement in Malaysia was not consolidated or strong among the people, and the issue only being manipulated or politicized rather to discuss from human rights perspective? I'm not sure who asked this question, but I'm doubtful that it is being manipulated or politicized from human rights perspective. Mother tongue education can be seen from rights perspective, but it can also be seen from the perspective of education. I think one of the reasons why we organize this conference is also because this concept of mother tongue based education is not really widespread in Malaysia. It is an irony because you know, we have so many initiatives to encourage that. But in real fact, I think historically for the last half a century since independence, basically communities have been defending their rights to learn in their mother tongue and trying to preserve languages, but there is no concept of having mother tongue based education being more effective. I think that is being shown also in terms of research. to be frank, we were trying to get academics who, who have research on this subject, but it is very, very hard to find someone who are competent to speak on this subject. I think it is because mother tongue education as a concept and, it has been under-researched. Malaysia is a wonderful ecology to research on the effectiveness of mother tongue education because there are so many varieties, but interestingly, there has not been, academic research from that point of view. Sorry,
Can I say something, Helen?
Sure,
Yeah.
Dr. Kwang.
Yeah, it's mainly because I've been involved with the Chinese education movement for many years, and I've been involved with SORAM, the human rights organization, for just as many years. At least 30 years. And I find that there is very little cross-pollination between the two. The mother tongue lobby is a bit slow on the other human rights, the civil and political rights, and the people who are handling civil and political rights are very slow on taking up questions of social, educational, cultural issues, And one of the problems seems to be the question of this so-called national integration. They see mother tongue education being a deviation from national integration. So it's a bit like falling for the government's line, that you can only have integration if you have one main medium of instruction, and I think that's a problem. So if these human rights people in human rights can see that, for example, the International Year of Indigenous Peoples Language is next year. They say. The International Year of Mother Tongue Language was actually established quite a few years ago, more than 10 years ago. Mother Tongue Language Day has been established. So these are all human rights, but people pick and choose which human rights they want to champion, whether it's civil and political rights or whether they should champion economic, social, and cultural rights. And I think that's a basic problem in Malaysia.
Okay, I saw the hand of Joemin. Please go ahead. Feel free to speak in Malay.
Okay, terima kasih. Thank you, Dr. Helen. So, saya mau memberi sedikit respon tentang soalan nomor 4, the question number 4. Is there any reasons why particularly MTB-MLE is not quite popular here in Malaysia? Saya melihat di dalam perspektif sebagai orang asal dan sebagai orang yang bekerja di dalam LDSM Malaysia. Saya melihat dua hal. Hal yang pertama di level community dan di level yang kedua level national level. Peringkat community kita melihat bahwa tahap kesadaran community, terutamanya orang asal di negara kita dan khususnya di negeri Sabah, akan pentingnya menjaga dan memelihara bahasa ibunda itu sangat kurang. Jadi apa usaha? What are the efforts we did in the past to make sure that we try to create awareness among the indigenous people? Itulah sebabnya Madam Rita telah mengkongsikan event yang begitu signifikan untuk kami orang asal, yaitu MIPSI. Dari WIPSI, become MIPSI 1, MIPSI 2. Itu adalah usaha yang berterusan yang kita lakukan di peringkat sebenarnya itu national level, tapi khusus untuk community level. Siapa partisipan dia? Kita invite community untuk datang dan mendengar ahli pakar tentang mengapa penting menjaga bahasa ibunda, mengapa penting MTB-MLE itu diterapkan jika mau melihat bahasa itu hidup. Itulah sebabnya in the future we are thinking about having the next MIPSI 3. Nanti Madam Rita akan share tentang itu, tapi tujuan dia kita mau supaya kita tidak berhenti hanya MIPSI itu, kita akan terus dan terus memastikan bahwa tahap kesadaran komuniti kita itu benar-benar berlaku di dalam di dalam konteks Malaysia. Itulah sebabnya mengapa walaupun kita membuat banyak thousand of bahan-bahan, kamu hanya nampak waktu conference ini saja. Banyak lagi bahan-bahan training saya tidak tunjukkan di dalam conference ini. There are so many, tetapi why people are not aware? Why government can't see that things? Sebab there are no real mechanism at the national level. Even you see policy, what kind of policy? Yang itu khusus kepada indigenous people. Ada KD, subjek KD diajar, tetapi how about me? I'm from Kimaragang. I also want Kimaragang curriculum in the school. Then saya belajar daripada apa yang presenter yang hari pertama dia share tentang pengalaman Thailand. Saya begitu teruja sebab Thailand kabinet mereka sudah menerima polisi bahasa nasional mereka dan mengiktiraf semua bahasa-bahasa yang ada di Thailand. Jadi itu adalah way forward untuk MTB-MLE di Malaysia. Once di national level ada polisi yang support. Jadi apa yang kita mau harapkan kalau tidak ada support daripada yang level yang top level. So that is the thing that we really want to see. As for me, I'm not speaking on behalf of ESA Malaysia. I'm speaking on behalf of my people, the orang asal. Yes, that's my my hope, my prayer.
Yeah, thank you for your sharing. Yeah, that's very important. Yes. Shall we move on? I think it is very important to have demand or want from ground up. Then there is political pressure for the government to react to it, especially in Sabah and Sarawak. Now you have much more bargaining power politically. So we must make sure that our leaders who are elected, support this policy. Then it will become a reality, I think. Okay, let's move on.
Can I say, I have one comment to make.
Michael.
Okay. You see, one of the problems faced by our people, among the indigenous people, when it comes to rights, masih ramai lagi orang kita ni tidak berani cakap sebab dia tidak faham hak dia, sebab dia tidak tahu hak dia. So we bang it also, nanti dia cakap, ini kerja NGO ni. So in Malaysia, we must understand, there are two types of organization, NGO and persatuan. When you mention about NGO memang orang yang melawan kerajaan, yang membantah kerajaan. Yang persatuan ni yang menyambut kedatangan menteri, yang menyambut kedatangan YB. So when they classify your organization NGO in English, they know that you memang kategori orang yang melawan kerajaan. So these are two things very, very important, no? So when they ask here, why don't NGO work together? Yeah, whatever we work together, the persatuan normally they don't even want to sign. We talk about our right as Rockian. How many want to sign? The thing that we are against the kerajaan or whatever it is. So the point here, I think our weakness here is education. A lot of our Malaysian, until after 60 years, still many of our people have not understood their rights as citizens of this country. So of course, on our part as persatuan or NGO, we would like to educate them so that they understand. The moment they understood their hak as Malaysian, normally I see in the kampong, any kampong that are open, like the Penan, for example. The Penan must well know about the right compared to other native. That's why they go put up blockade. That's why they speak up. That's why they come up, because they know their right. The government can do nothing against them. After all, it's their right. They're not go there and bang at the table, but they just protest at their own place, So I think it's very important that our indigenous people also understood the right first. Only then we talk about this No, the reason why people are don't appreciative about their own language now is because they seem not to bother much about their own rights. So the moment they understood the rights, I think naturally that idea of wanting to bring up that issue is there among them. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Rita, you want to say anything before we move on?
Yeah, well, just to add maybe to, I did mention the resolution and MIPC, why we set that up, because it's the spirit of indigenous people that came upon us, like I've said, as we sat down by the Waikato River, how we heard from other indigenous people besides us here that they too face the same issue, and so that's why we set up the MIPC, that it's the vehicle for us to, at least for indigenous people in Malaysia, to fight for or to request. And in fact, as I always quote Prof. Lobianco saying that we don't wait for them to come to us, but we have to continually pursue and advocate for our mother tongue, and even as to be educated on its right, as Brother Michael is saying. Yeah, it's indeed an uphill climb. And so the conference this time, this is what, like, together, all of us working towards this and to pursue that with what Dr. Kwa said, the MTB-MLE, to get it on board our national education agenda. Yeah. So that it for now, Dr. Helen, to add to what I've already shared.
Thank you. Yeah. Let me read out the next question. Question number 5 is, if you heard the presentations yesterday on MLE in other Asian countries, can you comment on issues that you learned and what could be adapted in Malaysia? Anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Joemin.
Saya sangat tertarik dengan presenter yang berkongsi tentang pengalaman negara Thailand, bagaimana mereka sangat boleh dikatakan successful di dalam program MTB-MLE, di mana kunci utama kejayaan mereka di sana adalah disebabkan adanya sokongan daripada stakeholders, daripada government, daripada institusi tinggi. For example, like in Payap University, you can attain an ethno-art programs. So I would like to promote this program, ethno-art. Those who are really interested to know more about ethno-art, mereka boleh pergi ke Universiti Payap dan mereka belajar banyak pengalaman dan pengetahuan tentang bagaimana menghasilkan bahan-bahan yang sesuai dengan kurikulum yang spesial ini untuk orang asal ini. Penglibatan institusi tinggi seperti Universiti Payap dan seperti Mahidol University itu, ini sekaligus mengiktiraf bahasa itu sendiri, mengangkat bahasa itu sendiri ke satu tahap yang begitu tinggi sekali. Orang tidak pernah menyangka bahasa ibunda itu boleh diajar di university. Tapi di Mahidol University mereka membuat research dan mereka membuat kurikulum khas untuk community Patani di selatan Thailand. Dan bagaimana kurikulum itu akhirnya membawa kesatuan di dalam negara Thailand sendiri. Apabila bahasa petani itu diangkat ke satu level yang tinggi, community orang petani di sana mereka rasa dihargai, mereka tidak rasa di marginalize ataupun dibuang ke tepi, dan akhirnya di sana keamanan semakin nyata, pemberontakan semakin berkurangan karena mereka semakin included, more inclusive to the minority group of people. Hak mereka tidak dinafikan. Jadi ya, kita mau belajar daripada negara Thailand, bagaimana semua elemen-elemen ini mereka bergabung dan menyebabkan program di sana itu semakin diterima baik dan negara lain semakin cemburu. Saya cemburu melihat kejayaan mereka dan tidak mustahil itu akan berlaku di Malaysia, Dr. Ting.
Yeah, I think it's true. That is also one thing I learned. It is important for universities and academics to get involved because I think even in Cambodia, I think Dr. Jessica Ball shared that, you know, it took 10 years for the program to be developed. And with the mother tongue-based education policy in the Philippines, it also generated a lot of interest and involvement from the universities. So I feel that, you know, NGOs, communities, and academics, they should work together so that, you know, we can move this forward. I do not know any other sharing from others. What you know, what is one thing that you struck your mind when you listen to the presentations over the last, including today, 3 days? Yeah.
I agree with Joemin that the biggest eye opener yesterday, I think, was realizing what is possible in Cambodia, Philippines, Thailand. You know, and I think this what they're doing over there should be brought to the notice of everybody in Malaysia. You know, of what is possible. The level of education in mother tongue, in indigenous people's education system, and besides that, if the government can do something about it, so much the better. But if they cannot, I think it is the responsibility of the Malay, Chinese, and Tamil lobby in this country, in West Malaysia, Semenanjung, to do something about helping indigenous people all over the country, you know, in East and West Malaysia. Because I don't see why not. Because there was another paper by one of our speakers who said that the cost is actually not very much. You know, like I said just now, comparing the cost, the education sector got 67 billion. Can you imagine how much 67 billion is?
Cannot.
Sorry, no. Indigenous people's education. How much is your budget? You know, that you need to go and ask a United States foundation to support your. Why can't the government spend a bit of money on that?
Yes.
And according to the speaker, I can imagine as well that the cost may not have to be so high. And then, well, all these rich tycoons in West Malaysia, Chinese, Malay, Indian, you know, get some money out of them to help the indigenous people. You know, shame them into to helping their fellow Malaysians in West and East Malaysia. You know, and this is what has to be done. And
we will count on Dr. Kwa.
Sorry?
We can count on Dr. Kwa to support this initiative.
Of course. But the important thing is that what we saw was possible in Philippines, Cambodia, and Thailand has to be emulated by us. Has to be replicated by us.
Yeah. For your information, Myanmar is also implementing mother tongue education, but it's interrupted by the coup. But they are also going ahead with mother tongue-based education. Okay, let's move on. Rita, would you want to share anything from last 3 days? Anything highlight for you?
Well, for me, I see first is from the earlier first day, like a future collaboration and networking to formalize it, like to join like the Asia Pacific Multilingual Education Working Group. That's a good one also, so that we're not just kampong. And as we're reminded and urged to have more engagement with other stakeholders. You mentioned just now the local teachers, the MOE and academics to continue to engage. So because sometimes they're saying that maybe our language is different from the ministry's language, so things like using the language. All these are good, important points for us. And as what Joemin, Dr. was saying, that in fact, we have really very, very ample resources to learn from the sharings of neighbor countries. Yeah, so okay, that bit that I see.
Thank you. Michael, you have anything to add before we move on? Yeah.
Of course, I've learned a lot from the presentation, but the sorry part of it was, I was cut off sometimes, due to the internet line. But anyway, I think at least we understood from the other countries how they encounter the problem and how they overcome the problem. And of course, back any country, there are two very important people that play a role there. One is politicians and politics in general. We change leaders. We also change constitution. We change laws and we change policy. So some countries, they become from bad to better. Some country from bad to worse. So anyway, wherever we are stand now in Malaysia, hopefully our keluarga Malaysia should be able to, we all not only speak Malay, we can speak Chinese, we can speak Iban, we can speak whatever it is in a multicultural community like ours, especially we in Sarawak. So not only we just speak it among the elders, but should be among the children, the younger generation, where they can speak their own mother tongue and learn it if possible. So that's what we're hoping for. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah. I will move on. I think the input of Sheldon Sheffer is not seems to be more a comment. I'll read it out. The fact is that countries such as Cambodia and the Philippines have much better MTB-MLE policies than Malaysia. For example, the criteria used for deciding when an indigenous language can be used in school, even as a subject, are much more rigid in Malaysia than those in other countries. Yeah, correct. Are those criteria not actually a means to keep mother tongue out of meaningful education? I guess, yeah, we know the answer. Unless you want further elaboration, we will move on because we are fast approaching 3:30. Question 6 is that I think there's a need to voice together among the NGOs for the demand of mother tongue rights to government and not to work alone with only any single community. I think this, I think we have all the panelists have voiced this opinion. Jeffrey Benjamin say on the rights issue, linguist Professor Lana Wee of NUS has published a book with Cambridge University Press arguing for treating the protection or non-prosecution of Singlish as a human rights issue. How much more then should this be case for the languages discussed at today's sessions? Okay, we agree. Yeah. Kurt, actually we have English translation if you press on the interpretation. Unfortunately, it's passed already. Edin Cho, additional information. SIL Malaysia also supports the local school which want to open semi-class as POL or after-school class. We already have a permission to visit government schools in Perak and can train semi-teachers to teach semi-literacy, read and write semi. We are also developing semi-dictionary, app and picture and reading materials for semi and Tamia in the beginning stage. If any Orang Asli community is interested, please contact SIL Malaysia. That's a good news. Janita, you may be interested in this. Suguna, do you think it is a good idea to include our Orang Asal and Orang Asli history? Unfortunately, history is not a compulsory subject. History is a compulsory subject. It is said that minority history has been put into 1 or 2 lines compared to before. Yes. Anybody wants to say anything about Orang Asal or Orang Asli history? I do think that in the history textbook, there are pages allocated for Orang Asal history. There is much less for Orang Asli history, but definitely Orang Asal, there are pages for it. Dr. Kimo, imagine that there are currently over 60 languages being or becoming languages of instruction in the Philippines. This could happen in Malaysia as well. As Dr. Kos said, Malaysia is not a poor country. Yes, we all agree. Yeah, the problem is you don't want to speak up and you choose to type in a chat. So I end up having to read out all. Anybody wants to say something besides the panel before I give the floor back to panel to sum up? No? Okay, I will give the floor back to anybody, please. You can raise your hand or just unmute yourself. No. Okay, we are quite punctual. So should I give the floor? Who wants to go first among the four of you? Okay, Joemin, dipersilakan. You can click on interpretation if you need English interpretation.
Okay, thank you again, Dr. Helen, and my colleague here, Rita, Michael, Mary, and Dr. Pua. It's happy to listen from your thoughts and ideas. So what I'm trying to say in this conclusion, in my recap, apa yang saya mau jelaskan di sini ialah bayangkan program kita di Malaysia, MTB-MLE, as a pilot project sudah 15 tahun. Sampai bila kita mau ini program hanya di tahap piloting. Ideally untuk MTB-MLE supaya lebih berjaya sekurang-kurangnya 8 tahun. Tetapi menurut kita punya pengalaman di Malaysia, 3 tahun itu sudah menunjukkan show some indicators perkembangan yang baik di dalam akademik kanak-kanak yang hanya 2 tahun duduk di dalam program, 3 tahun duduk dalam program ini. Bila mereka masuk in primary 1, they are the top 10 student. Why? I don't have that answer. Everybody, orang asal kita tidak ada answer, tetapi there are something to do with the program itself yang membuatkan kanak-kanak itu ada asas pendidikan yang kukuh, membolehkan bila mereka masuk ke mainstream pendidikan kebangsaan, kanak-kanak mudah beradaptasi. Jadi walaupun mungkin ideally 8 tahun kan itu memang it's what we call the menunggu kucing bertanduk. It's almost impossible with the policy that we have today. Tetapi saya tertarik dengan ide Cikgu Josak dengan program yang sudah mereka buat dengan ide KBE, di mana mereka membuat piloting di primary 1 dan program itu sangat berjaya. Why don't we extend the very same program to the Sabah or to Semenanjung Malaysia? That's what I'm thinking. So ada green light yang sudah diberikan kepada saya daripada kita punya stakeholders, kita punya partners yang mereka cakap why we should wait for the government to approve some certain policy or something like that. We just move on with what we are doing today. We just move on. So that's why I'm looking for MTB-3 and our champion here, Madam Rita, is with us. That's a big vision. That's our ultimate goal for next year. So wait for it. I'm looking for that, and I'm quite sure that you guys also very curious what will be happen in next MTB. So we'll see you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Joemin. Yeah. Perhaps we can think of starting to lobby the politicians in Sabah and Sarawak already, looking at GE 15. I give the floor to who among you? Three of you.
I just continue to
All right.
this time from younger to older.
the reverse from the elder first here. Well,
Okay.
I'm just getting to continue because a lot of us attending this conference either for the first time, we understand and we rekindle the fire and hearing the seniors are already involved in it, so even went to jail for it, you know. So for what Joemin said, okay, I'm here to continue to fan the flame. Yes, because who else will do it if we don't? Okay, and so most of the things through a little bit that I've shared, like joining more of the international and the neighboring groups, I would just add lastly to say for us all to continue to be positive, yeah, to be steadfast in carrying out our mission for MTB-MLE, and to continue to be open to get inspirations from each other and to keep marching on. Yes, just okay, over to you back.
Thank you. Rita. Yeah. Yes, Michael, please.
Okay, so for myself, on behalf of my NGO and also my community, if we want to go forward, of course, our group is, I think, comparatively speaking, we are the poorest of all the NGOs. We live based on what we have, and if none, then we also go so lah. So I like to say that if there are people in this group who are willing to support our Sekolah Adat, we will start after Chinese New Year next year. We will start whether they are students or whether we have money or don't have money. We will just move on. And of course, normally it's not easy to start any program, whatever it is. So far, we started many things. Initially, it will also get better lah. So I believe that our Sekolah Adat will slowly be blessed and be supported one of these days. So for me, when talk about this education is very, very important. And the only problem with education among the indigenous people is the problem of this multilingual also is a negative thing that happened to many of our educated orang asal sendiri. Because many of the parents, like myself, but of course, my parents, they don't speak other language lah, except their own. But there are parents who are very highly educated. They prefer to speak English at home. Even they are both of different tribes, but they speak English at home, so their children hardly speak their own mother tongue. Their mother tongue is English or BM, whatever it is. So this also, I see there's a problem there lah. But anyway, we truly appreciate that what Dojong is trying to promote here is on multilingual education, especially among the native. We should move on. From now on, of course, we look forward to work with anyone who are willing to take us and who are willing to join us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. Thank you, Helen, for sharing this. And I'm very happy to see Rita again. Was it Rita? Was it Anne or Rita that came last time?
Me, Dr.
Oh, yeah.
We authored the book. You edited it.
Nice to see you after all these years. But I hope that, I hope that this will be after how many years? 25 years?
1996, that was.
Yeah, so it's almost 25 years. I hope that we don't wait another 25 years before we come back to the same thing. But I totally support what Joemin and Michael and Rita said about we have to move on, you know, and we have to use all kinds of means to win the propaganda war. You know, you've got a Sarawak state elections coming up. We have the problem of the NGOs that don't support multilingual education. We have the problem of politicians from both sides who are not 100% on multilingual education. You know, they have to be challenged. You know, and the people in West Malaysia have to be challenged as well to help their saudara-saudari in orang asal in East and West Malaysia. You know, So I think there has to be a new impetus. You know, we cannot wait another 25 years to have another conference. You know, and that this conference should really be a serious move to provide the support, financial as well as moral support for mother tongue education of the Orang Asam. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that sort of sum up the, the panel. And I think the proposal to form some form of network or committee to sort of work on the issue has been proposed. We'll see what can be done. Probably, yeah, we will sort of see what follow-up we can organize. Yeah. So with that, I will hand the floor back to Diane.
Thank you very much to the panelists for the insightful sharing and the heartfelt messages. Thank you, Dr. Helen, for chairing the session.